welcome to my channel. Today I am going to be making a bunch of freezer meals. A good friend of mine is having a baby soon, and as a baby shower gift to her, I gave her 5 different meals that I'm going to be making and freezing for her to thaw when she needs them. The recipes today, I'm going to be making a vegetable lasagna, Swiss chard and pinto bean enchiladas, lentil soup, a summer vegetable stew with wheat berries, and eggplant dumplings. So my friend is not vegan, but all of these recipes will be, just that's the way that I eat. But I'm going to have little instructions for her on how she can incorporate other things that she might like to add. So I'm going to start by starting to prep all of my vegetables. I have a list here that I've made of all of the things that I need to prep for these recipes, and my goal is to be able to get things cooking while I'm prepping other things. So the first thing I need to do is for the eggplant dumplings. These are a recipe from Ottolenghi's Flavour cookbook. They're right here, and I'm going to give her a box of spaghetti to serve along with these. So I tried to pick out, I went and talked to her about what recipes she might like, and she picked all of these out, and it worked really well because a lot of these things I already have things prepared for. As an example, the sauce that's going to be in here and also in the lasagna is sauce I already have jarred. So it's going to make things a little bit easier. There's also a bunch of overlap between the recipes. She really likes eggplant, so this and the lasagna both have eggplant in them. So there's some overlap on things that I can get done together. Also, a few of these recipes, like the lasagna, I'm going to be doubling so that my husband and I have freezer meals as well. So I'm just going to get started on prepping my veggies. The first thing I'm going to do is cube up this eggplant. I have my little scrap bowl here. This is just a container that I bought some salad mix in, and it fits perfectly in my freezer. So what I do is I keep this in my freezer, and then I fill it up with scraps, and then whenever it's full, I bring it out to my compost in my backyard. And that just keeps the smell down and keeps everything nice and clean for me. So I'm just going to cube these in about 1-inch cubes, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be roasting these to avoid doing too many dishes. I bought some disposable foil pans. I usually wouldn't use these, but since she's having a baby and I don't know exactly when she's going to be eating these, and I want things to be easy for her, and I don't want her to have to feel like she needs to wash and return my containers. I'm just going to do these disposable pans and cover them with aluminum foil. And the nice thing about that is I can actually write on the foil like what this is and how to prepare it. So I just got my tin here that I'm going to be roasting these in, and my oven is preheated to 425. And so the recipe for the eggplant dumplings requires about 2 pounds of eggplant, and then the lasagna has another 1. And so I'm doubling the lasagna, so I have about 4 pounds of eggplant, like 4 1/4, I think it ended up being. And so it all just needs to be cubed and roasted, so that's what I'm going to do. Now that I've gotten my first batch of eggplant into the oven, I'm going to chop up my mushrooms for my lasagna, and then I'm going to chop up a bunch of garlic, and then we'll have all the prep done for the lasagna and the dumplings, and then I'm going to start working on getting the veggies prepped for our lentil soup. Okay, I finished all the chopping I need to do by hand, and now I'm going to use my food processor to chop up the things that are not going to be like in chunks, the things that I'm later going to puree. So I have 1 onion for the enchilada sauce, and I have 1 onion that is going to go into my lentil soup. But to start, I'm going to process up these 2 pieces of bread for breadcrumbs for the eggplant dumplings. The reason I want to start with the breadcrumbs is because after I put the veggies in there, this is going to get kind of wet and the breadcrumbs are going to get all gross. So I'm trying to think about the order I'm going to use my food processor so that I don't have to clean it out. Go ahead and transfer these into a little tray, and I'm going to toast these in my toaster, as my oven is otherwise occupied at the moment. Next I'm going to process up my onions, and these I'm just going to coarsely chop. I don't want them to be like a liquid or anything like that. Perfect. And I need a cup of onions for the lentil soup. And then the rest, I'm going to put these into my cast iron skillet over here. This is where I'm going to make the filling for the enchiladas. This is probably a little bit more onion than I need, but I can scoop some out later. Just dump that in. Now with my processor still all full of onion, so it doesn't matter if these mix together. I'm going to add my carrots. So for the lentil soup I need onions, carrots, and celery. These are carrots from my local farm share, and look at how beautiful and orange they are. I need also about a cup of carrots. Looks like we're going to be right on the money. So I rinsed out my food processor. I'm just going to get the cooked eggplant in. This is for the dumplings. It just needs to get kind of mushed up a bit. And now that I have these tins empty, I'm going to go ahead and put my mushrooms in here. And then we're going to get these roasting for the lasagna. In my oven. Our food processor has one final job, and that is to make tofu ricotta. And this is just a substitute for ricotta cheese that I'm using for both the dumplings and for the lasagna. So I'm just putting a block of extra firm tofu along with some extra squares that I had from dinner last night. So now we're going to add nutritional yeast, which is kind of a, if you've been plant-based at all, you know it's kind of a cheese substitute. I like to add a lot of it. Probably will put even more than that. And we need salt, about a teaspoon and a half maybe of salt, and some lemon juice, and garlic powder. About a teaspoon of garlic powder, and we need about 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. Alright, just going to blitz this up. We may need to add a little bit of water, but we'll just see how it goes. Much better. You can see it's nice and thick and creamy. don't think you're gonna fool anybody, but I think it tastes good, and it's, to me, an acceptable substitute. So I'm just gonna leave that in here while we move on to the next thing. Clean up my... Okay, I'm turning my attention now to my lentil soup so I can get this simmering. It takes like 35 to 40 minutes to cook. So I have my onions, celery, and carrots in here, and a couple tablespoons of olive oil. I'm just gonna mix these around and let these sweat for about 5 minutes, and then I'm gonna add the rest of the ingredients. Alright, now that my veggies are all sweated down, I'm gonna add the rest of the ingredients. So I need 4 quarts of vegetable broth, and this is the broth that I made in a video. Hopefully you all saw it. If not, it's on my channel in the canning series. I'm gonna add these. Alright, I've added all my broth. I'm going to add in 2 pounds of lentils, as I've just rinsed and picked through. You gotta have to make sure that you don't have a rock in there. I used to not bother looking through them, and then I did bite down on a rock once. So now I carefully pick through them. I'm going to put in 3 teaspoons of salt, and this recipe calls for a cup of chopped tomatoes. These are chopped tomatoes that I canned last season. 2 cups. So I'm just going to use the last cup of these in another recipe. And then the last ingredients are a teaspoon of cumin and a teaspoon of coriander. So I'm just going to give this a good mix, and then I'm going to let this simmer for about 35 to 40 minutes until the lentils are completely soft. Now that that's on the go, I'm going to turn my attention back to my dumplings here. So the recipe calls for, this is all of my eggplant all chopped up. I need some parsley. This recipe calls for an egg, but as many of you know, we don't eat eggs. So I'm using a flax egg, which is just a tablespoon of flax seed mixed with 3 tablespoons of water. And you can see it's kind of like goopy, kind of like an egg is. It's a very good binder / emulsifier. And we need 100 grams of ricotta. I'm going to do 100 grams of our ricotta mixture. 99, perfect. And then I need some garlic. This is about 3 cloves of garlic, so that's probably good. And then some flour. As we need 1.5 tablespoons of flour. Just gonna add a bit. This recipe also calls for chopped basil here. I don't have any, so I'm just gonna use some pesto that I froze last year. And then we need to add in our breadcrumbs. Pepper. Salt, and I'm just going to mix this in with my hands. Alright, the dough's feeling a little bit wet. But I'm going to give it a second for the breadcrumbs to rehydrate. You see, It's holding together pretty well, holds its shape. It's quite wet, so I'm gonna see if the breadcrumbs rehydrate, and if not, I'll probably add a little bit more flour. All right, I've got my oil preheating back here, and I have my cookie scoop, which I'm gonna use to kind of portion these out so that they're all evenly sized. And let's see, do I wanna just, no, I think I'm gonna pop them into my hand, make them into a nice ball. So while those are frying up, I'm going to go ahead and get my pan ready. This is the pan that I actually roasted the eggplant in. And I'm just going to leave it dirty. It's no big deal. It's already kind of pre-greased. Instead of making spaghetti sauce, I'm going to use the sauce I canned last year. And these are going to be, this is my second to last jar in this size. So I think this is going to be a great use of all of the sauce that I made. So I'm just going to dump that in the bottom. And then I'm going to just lay the dumplings on top of this. I don't need to worry about warming this up or anything, because I'm just going to put the dumplings in here, let them cool down, and then freeze the whole thing. So this is ready to go, ready to put those in. I've got all of my dumplings in, these eggplant dumplings in my tomato sauce, and I'm just going to add the final ingredient. It's just some sliced Kalamata olives. Alright, that one's all done. I'm going to move on to assembling my lasagna. Alright, I've got my pan here. And again, just going to reuse this one that I roasted the other veggies in. It's already got some oil at the bottom. I'm just going to start with a layer of sauce. I just find this really helps to keep the lasagna from sticking to the bottom. And the noodles fit perfectly, so that's nice. So then I'm going to do some more sauce on top of here. Then we're going to go in with our veggie mixture. So I have the mushrooms and the eggplant here, and then I have about a pound of grated zucchini. This recipe normally calls for zucchini kind of in cubes, but I had this in my freezer and I want to get it used up, and I think that it'll be just fine. And you won't even know it's there. And I thawed this and then I squeezed all the moisture out so that we won't have a soggy lasagna. I've got that all mixed in. I'm just going to do a layer of veggies on here. And we're going to do a layer of our cauliflower ricotta. I like to kind of do them alternating, so I find that that makes it a little bit more structurally sound. So since I have extra noodles, I'll go ahead and do that here. And I'm just using regular lasagna noodles. I know that it seems like you should have to use the no bake, but I was watching a video from Acre Homestead, and she says she just uses the regular noodles and it always turns out fine. So I'm trying that, especially because the no bake noodles are like 3 times the price. So these will have plenty of time sitting in liquid. So I think they'll be fine. And now we're just going to repeat everything. got the right amount of sauce. All right, so just gonna smooth this out, and then this is all done, and I'm going to assemble the other one that I'm gonna eat, that my husband and I are gonna eat for dinner off camera. But it'll just be the same process, just in a in our normal bake pan. All right, I'm gonna start on my enchilada sauce in this this pot. So I'm gonna put in about half of that onion, and this side I'm gonna be doing the actual filling for the enchiladas. So I've got a whole onion here, and I'm just gonna saute these down. And into here I'm gonna add half of my remaining garlic and two teaspoons of cumin, and 3 tablespoons of chili powder. I'm just going to give that a quick mix. Now I'm going to add in 2 jars of homemade tomato sauce. And this is just going to simmer for 5 to 7 minutes until it gets a little bit thicker and all of the flavors are together. And then I'm going to blitz it so that all of the little chunks of tomato are all incorporated. So now let that go. Move over here. While that's cooking, I'm going to add in my bell peppers. These are just 3 chopped green bell peppers. I think the recipe calls for 2, but the ones at the store were really small, so I'm doing 3. And I'll let that cook a couple of minutes. Now to my enchilada filling, I'm adding in the rest of my garlic. And then I'm going to throw in about a pound of Swiss chard. It seems like a lot, but it will wilt down quite a bit. I actually have another batch of the Swiss chard to add in. You can see how much that chard cooked down. And now I'm going to turn the heat off. So the recipe calls for a can of pinto beans that you smash half of them. But instead of doing that and dirtying another bowl, I have some leftover refried black beans that I made yesterday for dinner. So I'm just going to put a few scoops of this in here. Save myself that trouble. And normally I don't buy canned beans. I usually make them myself from dried. But I ran out of pinto beans, and I figured I was giving myself enough to do today. So those are the last 2 ingredients, plus a 1/4 cup of sauce. So add that in. And then we're just going to give this a good mix, and then I'm going to let this sit out for a while as it cools, because assembling the enchiladas while both of these ingredients are really hot is very difficult. So I'm just going to mix this up, and then I'm going to set these aside to cool, and I'm going to work on our very last recipe. Alright, to my little pot here I have my leek, about a cup of green beans, and the remainder of my grated zucchini and summer squash from last year. So that's perfect timing for new produce to come in this year. And I also added a 1/2 cup of white wine, and I'm just going to let that completely cook down until the beans are soft. Next thing I'm going to do is turn my attention to assembling my enchiladas. And so I have corn tortillas, and corn tortillas are very brittle, and they will break if you try and just roll them. So what I'm going to do is I have a damp cloth here. I'm going to put my tortillas into it, and I'm just going to wrap these up and put them in the microwave for about a minute. Probably start with 30 seconds. Alright, we've got our pan. This is one I use to cook some of the other things in, but no worries. It's all going to end up together anyway. I'm going to put about a half cup, maybe a little bit more, of sauce in the bottom of this. If you don't do this, the enchiladas will stick to the bottom, and you will never, they'll just get all crushed up, and it's really hard to get them off. Alright, now I'm going to grab one of my warmed tortillas, scoop some filling in there. I like to have it quite filled, and then I'm just going to fold it up. That's a little too much, went overboard. And I'm just going to fold this up. And then I like to put seam side down. Now I'm just going to fill all of these. And then I will come back to you when it's all done. So here is all of the food I made today. I've got 2 trays of enchiladas. Or 2 trays of lasagna. I have this in another tray of enchiladas. I have a tray of a summer wheatberry salad and an entire big thing of lentil soup. So thank you all so much for joining me today. It means so much that you've come to watch my channel, and I hope you have some inspiration for some make-ahead vegan meals for you and your family. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!